Hello and welcome to Adventures in Theater History, where we bring you the best stories from the deep and fascinating history of theater in the city of Philadelphia. I'm your host, Peter Schmitz, and our theme music is by Christopher Mark Colucci. We are continuing our series of interviews exploring the history of modern Philadelphia theater companies, and today's interview is with Jennifer Childs and Peter Pryor, the co-founders of 1812 Productions, the only Philadelphia theater troupe devoted entirely to the creation, exploration, and performance of comedy and comic theater. But before we meet them, let me introduce them to you, and just to make us comfortable in the traditional Philly attitude, I don't use their full first names, but instead, let's call them by the way everyone around here knows them, by their shorter nicknames, Jen and Pete. Jen Childs is a co-founder of 1812 Productions and has served as the company's sole artistic director since 2006. She has created over 20 original works of comedic theater for the company, including The Carols, To the Moon, Cherry Bomb, and the annual political humor show, This Is the Week That Is. Over the past 30 years, she has performed everywhere in the local theater scene and has been the recipient of 3 Barrymore Awards, including Best Supporting Actress in a Play and Best Actress in a Musical. Although a native Midwesterner, she is locally beloved for many reasons, including her character, Patsy, a red-haired South Philly lady sitting on her stoop wearing a cap and a pink Eagles sweatshirt, sharing many pointed observations about the state of the world. Jen has written and performed many solo shows for herself, including Why I'm Scared of Dance and I Will Not Go Gently, and she recently appeared at People's Light in Malvern, PA, in the show 2 out of 3, together with her husband, the actor Scott Greer. Longtime Philly area actor-director Pete Pryor is the other co-founder of 1812, and then became the associate artistic director for People's Light in Malvern for 8 years, where he was especially known for his direction of multiple annual holiday pantos, as well as his performances in such classic roles as Richard III and Autolycus in A Winter's Tale. Pete is the winner of 4 Barrymore Awards for excellence in theater and is the recipient of multiple individual artist fellowships, including a Lunt Fontanne Fellowship at 10 Chimneys in Wisconsin. Pete's play, Beautiful Boy, is now available on Amazon. I spoke to Jen and Pete over Zoom in August of 2026. Jen Childs, Pete Pryor, welcome to Adventures in Theater History.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are gathered here today, virtually speaking, at least, to discuss the founding and the early years of the now 29-year-old theater company devoted to the presentation of comedy in Philadelphia, 1812 Productions. And let me get the most obvious and common question out of the way. What's funny about 1812? Is it really just an address?
Yes, it really is just an address. I think that if we were to start I don't know about you, Pete, but if we were to start a theater company now, I don't know that we would call it 1812. But at the time, I don't think we considered any other names.
No.
And it was just the name of the house that you were living in at the time, 1812 Pine Street?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was the most immediate thing.
We describe it as kind of like an artist flop house, you know. There were maybe 4.5 bedrooms. One was kind of like a glorified closet.
Half a bedroom.
Right. It was like a quasi bedroom, right? That the source of most contention of who was there and who had to pay the least amount of rent for the room.
But I think we each paid $165 a month to live there. And it was a rotation constantly of there were actors, and there was always a musician, a dancer, a sculptor, a painter, a filmmaker, somebody who worked in technical theater, and the occasional German tourist who would stop by for a summer.
You had a little note in the newspaper saying if you're German and in town, you can stay at our house? What?
No, there was actually, we should have probably called it Adam's Place, right?
Yes, it's very true.
So Adam Nelson, who went on to be, and it still is an incredible PR person in New York, I think he was the original founder, right? He found the place?
Yeah, he found the apartment, yeah.
And then he brought us all in. And then I think he went through Europe just making deals saying you could stay at my place
Oh, okay.
in Philadelphia to just different places where he would crash in
Yeah.
Europe, and they would just show up on our doorstep.
So we will come back to the momentous 1997 foundation of the theater company, but let's set the background for it and tell us a bit more about your origin stories. Jen, as I recently learned when I went to see an autobiographical show of yours,
Mhm.
you are another fellow Midwesterner. You come from
Yes.
Ohio?
Ohio and Indiana. Yeah, that was sort of a couple of towns, but mostly Columbus, Ohio. Yes.
Did you have a theater family? There's some
No,
connection to vaudeville, though, going back to your
there is.
grandfather or great grandfather?
My great grandfather was in vaudeville, and my grandfather was a barbershop quartet singer. And he inherited my great grandfather's kind of like corny slapstick sense of humor. And so we learned all of these old jokes. And yeah, my grandfather was just really, really funny always. And so humor was very valued there. My dad is also a great joke teller. But my dad was a pastor. My mom was an activist and worked for Planned Parenthood and a number of women's causes and educational causes. But it was, yeah, it was really my grandfather was, I would just remember laughing there a lot and learning a lot of really old jokes. But no, not a theatrical family at all.
But were you doing shows, in school and stuff? Were you the theater kid in some way?
I did in high school, I did. And it wasn't, I don't ever remember going like, oh my gosh, I have a passion for this. This is what I'm going to do. It's like you audition for the plays because that's kind of what you did. It was sort of like, and then it was only later when I realized that I was good at it and people gave me attention, which I adored. That but I went into high school thinking I was going to be a doctor.
What happened? You would have been a wonderful doctor.
I don't know. I didn't. I could have handled it. I would have sucked. Actually, I went to a school where you went to school 4 days a week, and on Wednesdays you hooked yourself up with an internship in the community somewhere. And so my sophomore year of high school, I thought I was going to be a doctor. So my internship was on the paraplegic quadriplegic ward of a university hospital, and I was
Very serious stuff.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah, I was basically a glorified candy striper, but I couldn't handle it. I would come home and cry every day because I felt like I didn't know what to do for people and I couldn't help them.
Mhm.
And I was there with another girl who went on to be a nurse, and it was like this was her place. She'd found her calling, and I was like, this is not my calling.
Okay.
And I was also just really bad at math and science. So
So let's go back to the part where people are paying attention to me.
yes, yeah, exactly. Where I can do good things and people clap for me.
Right, right.
That feels nice.
But Pete, for your part, I noticed you come from a faraway land from Philadelphia. It's called, let me see here, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Is that correct?
Cherry Hill. I wound up there. I didn't start there.
Oh,
I started in Northeast Philadelphia, so I was from here.
the Great
and went-
Northeast. That's you.
Yeah, the great Northeast, and then we went to Cherry Hill my sophomore year in high school, and then I came back.
Okay. So so Cherry Hill, that was your couple years abroad, and then you
Yeah.
you came home,
Yeah.
you came home
Yeah.
again.
That was my
I
plan.
know, just I looked through the newspaper archives to find old stories about people. I note as a teenager you were the lead singer in a rock band called the Executives.
I could not believe you found that article. That was hilarious. That was really, really funny. And that picture, that shirt. I love that shirt. You
Well, I'll
were
post
funny.
it online
Yeah.
in the blog
Yeah.
accompanying this
Thank you.
episode so everyone can see what we're talking about. And then you were in the lead in the High School Musical. You were the king in The King and I. You were the title
Yeah,
character.
I did not get into theater until high school, until I moved to Cherry Hill, actually. They had a great theater program.
Oh yeah, famously, yeah.
Yeah, and my mom kind of forced me into it
What,
because
just to get you out of the house more? Or?
she didn't want me going in the other direction.
Oh, I see. Keep you off the streets.
So, yeah, and I took to it, and I really liked it, and that's how I started doing shows and things like that. Well,
All right, but so both of you come to Philadelphia in 1986 to attend what was then a fairly brand new theater program at a fairly brand new amalgamated institution called the University of the Arts, that institution that had been created by the merging of the Philadelphia Art Museum School and the Music School. And then on top of it, Walter Dallas and others created a theater school. So is this where you two first met? Is that where you first laid eyes on each other?
Yeah.
Do you remember the moment?
I do. He was the first person in my class that I met. The first class that we had was piano lab. And we were, and I remember walking, and Pete was sitting on the floor in the hallway outside the room, and I walked up, and he was like, "Hey, oh Pete," and yeah, it's the first person I met.
And what did you think when this lovely, sparkly young woman, not the tallest, but certainly the brightest light in the room, suddenly like shone her light upon you?
I thought, great, somebody who knows where she's going. She knows how to work this class schedule thing.
So what about your teachers in terms of the drama program? So Walter Dallas was still
Yeah,
teaching there, right?
yeah.
And now I asked this because I've only recently become aware of her work. Irene Baird, was she a faculty member there?
Yeah.
Well, first talk about Walter, who was one of the great directors in Philadelphia for many years, and one of the heads of the Freedom Theater Company. But as part of the founding faculty of the arts, what was he trying to do with you as young people and creating a new sort of aesthetic for Philadelphia theater?
What was really amazing about Walter is his embrace of a instructors who were actually doing the work. Like Johnny Hobbs was our freshman studio teacher, and he was still incredibly active in the theater scene here. Like I remember going to see him in Black Picture Show at Freedom Theater and just having my Ohio Midwest mind blown.
Mm-hmm.
So he was embracing people who were actually doing it over people who had multiple degrees. And I remember talking with him and him saying that when he would go to New York to do auditions as a director, he and other directors would play a game with each other where they would watch the audition and then before they looked at the resume, guess where the person had gone to school based on their approach to the work and the things that they chose. And he said, I don't want that.
That's a Yale person. That's a Juilliard person.
Exactly. I don't want to graduate a whole bunch of clones. And so each year we were exposed to really, really different styles of training. And he was sort of like, you're going to discover your style through all of these.
And one of them was Irene Baird, who had come from the Villanova program. And as I'm reading about her, she was a hurricane in the classroom. Tell me what it was like to take a class with Irene Baird.
It was incredibly intimidating. I mean, I think that was one of the things. You had Walter, who was mythical, right? He had this aura about him that was created from Walter on down, and then from Irene's class where you were just immersed. You didn't know how. It always felt like you didn't know how long it was going to take.
Yeah, she might take 2 hours on a monologue, wouldn't she?
Right.
Yes,
Like,
and she would be trying to bring you to the emotional peak of it, and she would poke you, and she would tear her hair, and she would roll around on the floor trying to get you to do something.
Do I have enough food to get me through this class? Am I going to make it? Right. Yeah. You would go through something in every one of her classes. It was great. She had a way of, like, for me, she had a way of taking you on a journey through your own personal experiences of the time, of what you were trying to achieve, and then what was beneath that, what was really in the moment, and how you could connect it to the material.
So if you're doing brick from the Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, and you're trying to talk to Big Daddy, she's like, don't you feel guilty? Don't you feel unappreciated? Don't you feel angry? Yeah. Where's your anger coming from, Pete?
Right.
And she would make it come up. Jen, what did she do to you? What would you remember working on with her that she dragged you through over the rocks with?
Well, she had everybody do what she would call a physical adjustment and create their own, and it was always connected to a force of nature. So like maybe you were a volcano or maybe you were a wave, and they were not violent, but they were hugely physical and vocal, and they sounded like what they were: a volcano, a tornado, a hurricane, a wave. There were no like a pond. Nothing was peaceful about them, and you had to come up with a movement and a sound that you would do. And anytime you were in the middle of the scene and she didn't believe you, she'd make you do this physical adjustment. So it's like, fi, unknit that threatening, okay, I don't believe you, do it, and you'd have to do this physical adjustment and then dive back into the work again.
And was anyone there teaching you comedy? Was there anyone teaching you want to know how to be funny on stage? Here's how you tell a joke. Was it all about truth?
I don't think we didn't have a comedy. We didn't have I mean, we did improv, but it was never comedy focused.
Did you do mask work? Did you do commedia dell'arte work?
Yeah, with Walter. Yeah.
And that was incredible. That was a really, we had mask work our freshman year, and it was a really, for me at least, a transformational class. I'd never done anything like it.
So when you both graduated, you didn't stay in you went to London for a while. I learned from your last play.
Did. I was operating under the delusion that the Royal Shakespeare Company was like waiting for me to graduate so they could cast me in a whole bunch of things.
They
And
weren't?
no, they were not actually waiting for me. What was waiting for me was a bartending job, but I had a great time.
Well, that's a different kind of school, isn't it?
It is. And I learned a lot. And I learned a
Okay.
lot about comedy, like keeping you on your toes when you're
Well,
behind the
yeah,
bar.
the Brits are very good at that. But Pete, what happened to you? Did you stay
Oh,
in
I
Philly
did
with
the
them?
opposite thing. I went to a lot of bars.
Yeah.
Um, I worked at a Club Med, Port St. Lucie, Florida, which was actually kind of great training because I was involved in all of their routines. They have nightclub routines every single night, and I was in charge of all of their comedy routines every single night. So
But eventually, you both came back. What brought you back? Did you feel you could make a living here, start here? You made some decision. I need to be in this place, and I want to start doing shows.
For me, my visa ran out
Okay.
in England around the same time that my student loans came due. And so I moved back home to Ohio for a bit to like save up money to either I was thinking I would move back to England, but that was unrealistic and I realized there's never enough money to move anywhere. You can never save enough money. And the only place that I knew people was Philly. And so I came back and I knew I could live at 1812 I stayed in the closet there for
You were the half bedroom.
I was the half bedroom for the first, I don't know, 3 months, and I stayed there for $80 a month. So I
I
knew
think
like somebody.
it was a quarter. It was a quarter bedroom, not a
It
half
was a
bedroom.
quarter
Half
bedroom,
bedroom.
that's
Yeah, quarter
right.
bedroom.
Enough for like a single bed and a
Yeah.
crate. And so I came back to Philly not intending to stay. And I remember meeting with Walter and going like, I have these pictures that look like me, but I don't know what to do. Like there were no business of theater classes at the time
Right.
and in our studies. And I was like, I just don't know what to do. And he was really, really helpful in kind of giving advice on how to navigate and how to begin. And also Philly was changing. You know, when we were in
Right.
school, it was a place you studied and left. It was not a
Right.
place to stay.
Yeah, in the mid '80s, well, there was some theater, but no way you could make a living. No way you could work regularly. No. But this had changed by the early 1990s. And this was just the period when the nonprofit theater movement in the city was really beginning to take off. And you were both young and hungry, and there was a lot to do. Now, I should mention at this point for our listeners at this interview, I don't really plan to go much beyond the year 2008. Again, I try and stay away from the near present. I try to avoid any appearance of journalism here. We're doing serious history, but part of it is just a time consideration. We could be here all day. So I want to concentrate on the period from about 1992 to 2005.
Mhm.
And when I go back into the newspaper archives, I see your guys' name coming up again and again in the list of Barrymore Award nominees and Barrymore winners. And you're doing shows at the Drama Guild, at the Arden, at the Wilma, at the American Music Theater Festival. You're doing People's Light. You're at the Young Playwrights Festival, the Festival for New Plays with Carol Rockamora, the Lantern Theater. It's like a rundown of all the names that we've been talking to on this podcast over the past year. And you're working with Mary Robinson, you're working with the Ziskas, you're working with Terry Nolan and Aaron Posner, and you're beginning to use the skills that you trained for. You're using Commedia dell'arte, you're doing plays by George Bernard Shaw, you're doing Shakespeare. It's just an amazing variety of genres, of companies, of directorial approaches, of theaters and locations. Pete, at one point, I notice here, you're playing a rooster in an Edmond Rostand piece at the Philadelphia Zoo.
Yes. Yeah, that was awesome. That was really fun. That was so much fun. I remember
Anticlear,
doing
it was
that.
called. Yes.
Yes. And a good friend of ours, Corey Einbinder, who was also it was his company. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it was his company. And I just remember I had a Chevy Nova and I drove like half the cast to rehearsals.
Everybody piled on top of each other in the back seat, no doubt. Yeah.
I remember one time we got into an artistic argument halfway home, and people got out of the car in the middle of Philly somewhere. It was ridiculous. It was really fun. Great
That
time.
Chevy Nova,
Yes.
I remember so vividly. It cost $75 and it didn't
Yeah.
have a gas pedal, it had a gas spike. And
Yeah.
we both taught over the summers at a camp out on the main line for
Yeah.
a few years. And that Chevy Nova and then the motorcycle that you eventually
Yes,
bought served us very well in terms of commuting. So,
that's right. Both
So
both supremely safe modes of transportation.
right. But what did it feel like at the time? Did you feel like, hey, this is taking off, this is working, or were you too much in the middle of it to really step back and see what was happening?
One of the things is it was just so gloriously reckless.
yeah.
I mean, it was so much fun that we were constantly jumping into the void and doing something, creating something, being alive, and there's a danger in that, and it's one of the things I think University of Arts instilled in what we were doing is always doing that adventure. I think one of the things that Jen has carried forward with 1812, and it's you're alive, but you're going to have ups and downs and troughs, and and highs, and that's all part of it. But we were in it. We were like, you don't know that you're in it because you're in the water. It's like, how's the water, guys?
It's asking the fish to describe the ocean. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we also, living at 1812, we were living with, as I said, all of these different artists, some of whom were still at university. And like I remember Frank Plant, who was a sculptor, one of his things was he did a living, I don't know, what do you want to call it, a living tableau or a living sculpture in the front window of one of the U Arts buildings. And it was just, people would just go in and just be in the window and just go about their days and do things. And people would walk by and watch for a while. And so we all took turns being in the window. So we had a thing also at 1812, the apartment called Tuesday Nights for a while,
Right.
where every Tuesday night it was one roommate's turn to plan what the artistic adventure was going to be. And you didn't know what it was. You just were told where to show up, how much money to have, and what to wear. And it was everything from like all of us going square dancing at a church basement in West Philly to renting a dance studio and Manfred Fishbeck, who ran Group Motion Dance Theater at the time, coming and like improvising on the piano while we all danced around and made art. It was just an incredibly full and creative time, and doing all these shows, all these different places felt like just an extension of that, you know? It was a place where everything was possible. I mean, that's why I stayed. It was because it was exciting and things started to feel possible. And it wasn't just performing in things and having these artistic adventures. It was like you could teach outreach programs you could teach for. It suddenly became possible to not have to wait tables, to not have to do any kind of money job, but really just hustle and cobble together enough. And our overhead was really low. So we didn't have to make a whole bunch of money.
So along with your work at all these theater companies, I noticed both of you began to work increasingly at the Arden Theater Company, this company that had started in the third floor of the Walnut in the 80s and now had its own space at St. Stephen's. In the back there, Pete, you were in the production of The Tempest at St. Stephen's, co-directed by Aaron Posner and our next guest on the podcast, by the way, Mark Lord, in 1993. What did you think about this new case? Saying, oh, these guys seem to know what they're doing, or was it just, look, here's another gig?
No, I mean, the funny story with Arden, I knew that they were coming on the scene, and I remember going there. I had no idea. I still don't know how things work, but I remember going to the Arden, like knocking on the door and saying, hey, can I have a job? You know, and
did they give you one right away?
Yeah, actually, Aaron gave me a job, the worst job you could give me, which was like a tech job. I worked the sound and light board for one of their productions and totally screwed up a show so bad that they had to let me go eventually. But then I worked my way back into their good graces, and that's how I got cast in something.
You were doing Ferdinand, right? In The Tempest.
Yeah, but I didn't think I was ever going to get work there again at that point. I started working legitimately through Mary Robinson, who I think...
We're doing Moon for the Misbegotten there.
Yeah, she had done something with the school. I can't remember what production it was, but she had done something with University of Art and then cast me in a legitimate production at the Drama Guild at the time. And then I worked at the Drama Guild, and that's how I started working equity. Yeah, it was just a byproduct of what we were doing, the crazy lives we were living. The legitimate theater was just there and it was happening, but it wasn't like a set out focus for me.
So Jen, you had been in Echoes from the Jazz Age with the Arden 92, which is one of the thing they used to do early on was adapt short stories and things, as well as the thing that they really started to do, productions of George Bernard Shaw and Shakespeare. So you're doing Shaw's Man and Superman and Major Barbara.
Yeah.
in 93 and 95. And it's at this point you meet another young lady in the city named Grace Konglevsky, or Jenny Grace, as they
Yeah.
call. Yeah. And who becomes your best friend. When we had her on the show, she talked endlessly about you. So
Uh,
now's your turn to
I
quell
tried to
about
talk
her.
endlessly about Grace. No, when I did Echoes of the Jazz Age, Grace was pretty much ensconced at the Arden at that time. She was kind of like
They're leading lady.
One of the Arden girls, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was great because while there's always competition between actors in Philadelphia, Grace and I were so different. Grace is a leading lady. I'm
Mhm.
a sidekick, comic relief kind of person. So there was less of that, and we were just able to kind of fall in love with each other. And I remember Anne Robinson in Echoes of the Jazz Age sang every time we say goodbye. And Grace and I would sit backstage and just hug each other and kind of sing quietly along. And, you know, it's like any kind of love relationship. It's like you meet your new best friend and you fall in love with them. And
Mhm.
we've had the opportunity to work together any number of times. Our daughters were born a month apart. And so we mothered together. And yeah, she's aces. And I've also had the opportunity to direct once I started directing, to direct her. And she's just an incredible force in the room.
You did musicals at the Arden. You were doing a production of Sometimes Company in 1997, but all of these were in their first space, the upstairs Arcadia stage. What was it like for both of you working at the Arden? What did it feel like to be in the room with, Terry and Aaron and all these other people?
They felt connected and organized to me. They knew what they were doing. They had a very clear vision. And both Terry and Aaron and Amy, like they were moving forward artistically. They were clear, as well as organizationally. They knew what the mission was. So it was great to be part of that and to latch onto that ride.
So we've already discussed on the podcast about how the Arden was, in a sense, fostered by Bernard Havard at the Walnut in its very earliest days. And Terry and Amy and Aaron wanted to pass that along, and they wanted, in their turn, to foster a smaller startup company. When did you guys first come to them and say, "Hey, we'll be that. We'll be that." That new group, foster us. We'll be a new group. When I was at a similar stage, I didn't want to run anything. I just want people to look at me.
Yeah.
But you wanted to do something, run something, organize something. What's the germ of that?
All right. We were in a production at the Arden of the Countess Kathleen, and we were playing
Yes.
we were playing Ministers of the
Ministers
Devil.
of the Devil.
And we were in alternately blackface and whiteface. Ozzie Jones directed. It was set it was a Yeats play that he refocused and set in the antebellum South. So we were playing Ministers of the Devil, and we both smoked at the time, and we were out in the alley behind the Arden, dressed as in our devil outfits, smoking furiously. And
I wish I had a photo of that.
I know. We taught at this camp, Friend Central Day Camp, for many years, and we started writing shows for the kids there. And we wrote, I don't know, 6 huge full cast comedies, and we had started to be. We were constantly cast in comedies. When people were looking for comedic actors, we often came to mind. And there was some comedy in Countess Kathleen, some of it unintentional. But I just remember being in that alley and smoking and going like, we could do this. We could make something like this. Come on. If they can do it, we can do it. And so hubris. But I don't remember where the Complete Works idea came from. I remember.
So I should say the first idea that is
Yeah.
there's a play called The Complete Works of William Shakespeare, spelled Compleat. It was a known quantity. This was the Reduced Shakespeare Company in England had come up with this idea years before. It was a 3-man group that run through all the plays of Shakespeare. It was very common sort of sideshow at Shakespeare festivals. The Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival would do The Complete Work. It's a great, sort of side project for 3 actors to do, and the audience always loves it. So you don't remember why you picked that?
I don't think it had been done. I don't think it had been done in Philly yet.
Right, that's correct.
I think we were the first one. I think there was a novelty to it.
Yeah. And also, I do remember going to Terry and us saying, like, we would like to direct. And him saying, no, you can't direct me. But we're opening up the Haas and the space upstairs. We don't have plans for it. So if you want to produce something of your own, we will help you get that off the ground.
Right. So at the time, they had opened up the back and the lower space, this huge space, which they had done with Kieran Timberlake. They figured out how to put sort of girders down the side and open up this huge, what is essentially a black box space, although they usually use it as a thrust. And they were preparing to do, for their first production, Aaron was going to direct A Midsummer Night's Dream, the first production on the new Autohaus stage. And this allowed the Arden to really begin doing big things, all while maintaining its commitment to local theater artists. So this show, I'll just list off the credits because it's still amazing to me to think about it. It had Melanie Finister, Pierce Bunting, Ian Merrill Peaks, Lenny Haas, Tony Braithwaite. The former theater critic William B. Collins was playing one of the mechanicals, as well as Aaron Cromie and Greg Giovanni, who are two sort of cutting edge people coming from the fringes of the theater world, who had been doing wild and interesting things, and now they're being asked to come in and play at a major theater company. The choreography was by Karen Getz, and the lighting was by longtime Philadelphia lighting designer Jim Leitner. And once again, Grace Gonglevsky is in the cast. And she's doing Helena, Jen, to your Hermia. I don't know why they didn't cast you the other way around. Playing the role of Lysander, I'm sorry, there's a guy named Scott something?
Never heard of him. Never.
No. Mr. Scott Greer is how I believe we pronounce his name. Is that where you met him, or had you known him before?
We met before. He and I met understudying Into the Woods at the Walnut.
Oh,
and
right, because he had been an apprentice at the Walnut.
Apprentice, yeah. And then he joined Comedy Sports, which is still an improv group that I was a part of, and we started improvising together and hanging out there, and we dated, and then we didn't date, and then a room opened up in 1812, and his lease was up, and he was like, "Hey, can I move in?" And so he moved in, and I remember Pete going like, "Isn't this going to be weird that you guys used to date?" I'm like, "No, Scott, what could possibly happen?" And then there was a blizzard, and we were the only two roommates left in that house. So anyway.
Okay, and we'll draw a discreet curtain.
That's a different story. There we go.
But you decide to do this show, and you're directing this complete works of William Shakespeare. You're not in it. There's three other guys are in the show. You hire these three great non-equity comedians to be in it. What were their names again? I don't have them in my notes for some reason.
Thomas Fowler,
Kevin Doherty, and Michael Byrne.
Yeah.
And Kevin and Thomas were both Comedy Sports members who we knew through the improv community. And Michael Byrne at the time was a big fixture on the drag scene with his drag persona Carlotta Tendant, who he used to host Drag Bingo and also performed a lot with like Big Mess Orchestra, which was big at the time.
But the show, how does it go? How does this play? Because at the same time, you're doing Midsummer Night's Dream downstairs, and there's another play that you've directed and organized upstairs. You've got the whole building covered, Jen.
No, I remember I had a performance of Midsummer on the opening night of Complete Works, and they held the curtain for me downstairs so I could run up and do the curtain speech with Pete and then run back downstairs. So
that's an amazing feeling, isn't it? Yeah.
So cool.
So it's a success. It goes well. And then the next year, 1999, you're back for your second show with 1812 Productions. You now decide to do the musical Box Office of the Damned. And again, this was a known quantity. This was by the local composer, Michael Ogborn, and it had already been done in Philly back in the 80s at the Painted Bride, and he'd even done it off Broadway. So why was this the next thing?
It was so funny. I mean, it was just really funny, and we wanted something very different than what Complete Works was. And, Jolene Ringel was around at the time, and she and Michael were very close. And she was just a powerhouse. She was, our first couple of years that we would do these, what we called free fundraisers, where it didn't cost you anything to come, but it cost you to leave. Jolene would do cabarets for those. And so she was...
Run that by me again. So you're organizing your company, you're getting a board together, you're fundraising. Yeah. So you would say you can come, but you can't leave without paying. A hostage situation.
Well, it wasn't quite as dramatic as that, but it was pretty close. At the time, you could rent the mayor's reception room in City Hall
Oh
for
my God, yeah.
$250. And
Right.
so for $250, you have this beautiful room. And we just basically ordered pizza and had free booze and a couple of silent auction items. And we would say, it's free. You can come. And there were envelopes on all the tables. And at the time, because nobody knew who we were, we couldn't really say, come pay $250. So anyway, but we knew Jolene from being around, and she
Yeah,
was
talk about Julian. Here's a great time.
5:45, Saturday night. I'm gonna show my man I'm erudite.
So tell us about this amazing person who everyone's eyes got a little misty when they mention her. Why was she an amazing person?
she was 6'2" with long red hair, and she had the most incredible voice. She was an incredible actress, but because of her size, people didn't. I mean, she and I would, commiserate on this. People didn't know what to do with her. She was like, well, you can't be a leading lady because who's going to be your leading man? There's nobody taller than you. Or, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. And so Jolene really went like, all right, you don't know what to do with me. I know what to do with me. She brought a kind of star power to Box Office of the Damned.
Which is a show, I should mention, by the way, which is what happens in a nonprofit box office.
Box Office was based on Michael's experience at the Drama Guild when he worked in the box office of the Drama Guild.
And she started creating her own work and her own cabarets. And she had her most famous one was Mondo Manja, which 1812 produced twice, where she would tell stories and sing songs about food while cooking an Italian meal for the audience. And it was just a runaway hit. It played here, it played in Pittsburgh for years, and Connecticut, Hartford stage. She was big-hearted and generous, and she really helped 1812 go to the next level many times.
Then the next year, the year 2000, is the show called The Big Time. Now, from my notes in an interview published previously in Inquirer, Childs revealed that the inspiration for this show came from two sources. Her interest in staging a play based on the comedy routines of Burns and Allen, and her own great-grandfather's long ago vaudeville career. Talk about why you are now interested in talking about vaudeville. It's such a long ago genre that you have to explain it for 5 minutes to people. How were you going to get people in the room to see a show about, the link seems to mostly be old television shows, because a lot of the latter vaudeville guys ended up with their own TV shows in the 50s. And that seemed to be the link. All those guys ended up on TV, and that's how people knew, Jack Benny, Burns and Allen. They knew who those guys were because they'd been on radio and TV shows. They might have heard that.
The year prior, we had done our first holiday show, and we did Santaland Diaries, and Pete, the David
Sedaris monologues.
The David Sedaris monologues.
Yeah.
And I directed Pete in Santaland Diaries, and he directed me in Season's Greetings, which we could never, ever do today.
No.
Indeed. But it was such a hit.
Just because of the material, the content
It's a little bit racist. But we really wanted to do more David Sedaris pieces, so we wrote to David Sedaris several times saying, hey, can we adapt your other short story, your other holiday stories from Holidays on Ice? And he just kept saying no, 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 no. And this is kind of where the 1812 Pine Street mentality comes in. It's like, well, if we can't do that and we can't find the thing that we want to produce, we're just going to make it ourselves. And I personally don't think I had any idea about really what that meant. It was just sort of, I like Burns and Allen. I have a whole box full of my great-grandfather's joke books and sheet music, and it was also pre-hipster. Like we're having little handlebar mustaches or playing, like nobody played the ukulele at the time. Now everybody plays the freaking ukulele.
Everybody in Philadelphia theater knows how to play the ukulele,
yes,
the guitar, or the mandolin.
This was pre that, and so that was the genesis, and then it just became about doing research, and I spent a lot of time at the Library of Congress. They have an archive of old vaudeville routines from like the late 1800s through 1920.
Yeah.
And
now you can get them online. You don't have to go down there.
Yes, I know. back in the olden days. And then also creating our own work sort of in the style of. And I think I doubted it. I think everybody doubted, even the people in the play. It was me, Scott, Tony Braithwaite, and Dave Jadico.
Is this the first time Tony Braithwaite starts to work with you guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Tony
yes.
Braithwaite, now the head of the Act Two Playhouse out in Amber, but the possibly the funniest man I've ever met, the most naturally funniest person I've ever met. You got Tony in the room. You got comedy nailed down.
No, it was a really good mix of people. And I remember reading, I think Cliff Ridley in the Inquirer.
Who was then the leading drama critic of your
Yes,
right.
yeah. Referencing it and saying something like a vaudeville bill of all things. And I don't know what we expect. I was just happy it came off, but it really hit hard. And we had a number of things that hit really hard. Like we did Bat Boy the musical together. That really was another big kind of explosive jump up for the company.
Right.
And
But you do the big time again in 2002. You do it again in 2013.
Yeah.
It's sort of an endless, like vaudeville, an endlessly renewable resource. You do a show called The Great Northeast about your birthplace, Pete.
Yeah.
Big Northeast section of the city. And in 2002, a show Crazy Like Wow, which is about television routines from the 50s. Is that right?
1950s nightclub comedy.
Nightclubs, that's right. So you're starting to develop an ensemble, you're developing a board, you're developing a method, you're developing a reputation, but you're both, of course, also working at other theaters all the time. You obviously couldn't support yourselves through 1812. You weren't pulling down big $100,000 salaries from this organization.
Still aren't, I hate to tell you.
Oh, no?
Yeah, right.
Darn it. Because I was going to hit you up. All right. So, but in 2004, you make a short film together called, a bit ominously, This Is a Breakup. So you're branching out even into other media.
I feel like that was really, Pete, I think had part of the reason that we were called Productions is that we didn't want to be limited to just theater. It was like, oh, we want to be able to do these other things. And I think the idea for This Is a Breakup was yours. And with Don Montre, who was
Don, Don and me, and yeah.
What was the basic plot of it? Why was it a big breakup?
I don't know.
It's about a couple breaking up. It's about the end of a relationship.
About a couple. Jen and I were this supposed couple, and then we were breaking up, but they probably shouldn't have been together in the first place. And
it was a kind of mockumentary about the breakup.
And then we got a bunch of really fun people together to just, it was Spinal Tap, that kind of idea, that flavor of it.
Okay. But things were beginning to get serious in your life as well as in the outside world. In 2005, Pete, you directed for 1812 Recent Tragic Events, which is Craig Wright's play about the aftermath of 9/11, which had just happened 4 years before. But this brings me to the question, since the world by that part at large was getting a bit dark, although you both begin to get married, have kids, start your own life, you're beginning to face the serious side of adult life. What's it like to be working on a comedy in very serious times, both politically and personally? Do you begin to feel like that you're out of your 20s, life's just not a breeze and an adventure? You're like, this actions have consequences. You fall down, you don't bounce back up all the time. It's not it's funny because we know most of the, if you fall down, you should hurt yourself, but we stand up and go ta-da instead.
Well, that's a great analogy, and I think one of the things that we that I learned through 1812 and other places directing, I was lucky, I was gifted the opportunity to direct, and you learn this through direction too. In direction, when you have a vision and you put it out there, and you can see all of the areas where you're like, I missed that one. Okay, I missed that idea. This wasn't clear, or I took a chance trying to tell this kind of story, and that's not working. Those ideas became exposed to me really clear in projects. And comedy, and Jen can talk about this, is immediate. You know when it works and when it doesn't, right away, right in the moment. And it's really painful when it doesn't.
Well, this is just the point when you actually plunge into a tragedy. Famously, this is when you do your Richard III at the Lantern. It's one of the darkest plays ever. So there is dark comedy in it. There's
dark comedy in that, but that's more of like, oh, there's no way he can do that. He's just a silly bastard. So it's just like that. Oh, okay, great. This is another challenge I can jump into, something I can I can completely throw myself into and do. It becomes a goal, like something outside of my wheelhouse.
Well,
So,
speaking of
yeah,
challenges, Pete, well,
yeah,
about 2005, when I arrived in town, and I'm just trying
yeah,
to introduce myself around, I first meet you and your then wife, Juliet Dunn, is because you're having this enormous gathering out at People's Light in Melbourne.
right,
And it's a
right,
fundraising and organizing event for a project about autistic kids. And this has to do with a diagnosis that you now had received about your own son.
right.
And eventually, you and Juliet become the founders of the Stages program, which uses theater games and exercises to help develop and educate children with special needs. But at some point, and I'm sorry, I don't know when this is exactly. So this is I'd like to know the answer to questions when I ask them, but I'm
Yeah.
going fishing a little bit. You begin to move on from 1812, and you become the associate artistic director of People's Light in Melbourne. When does this transition happen?
I didn't start officially at People's Light till about 2010. So there was a lot of wandering around from 2005 to 2010, working at different areas. People's Light was great. They gave me the place to have the event for Colin. That was for therapy. Juliet she did a lot of the work. Theater Horizon was instrumental in a lot of the work that we did with Colin as far as the therapy, and they used that to branch out into programs that they still
This is in
run.
Norristown.
Yeah, they still run today. They did great work, and they continue to do good work.
But by the fall of 2008,
Yep.
you're jointly performing in a piece for the Fringe again. So this was Karen Getz's Disco Descending, a takeoff of
Oh,
the Orpheus myth. So I
my
have a
God.
beautiful picture of you two together, and Pete, you look like the devil, and Jen, you're all dressed beautifully in robes like Lucy. And this seems to be just after the Wilma had done its production of the Sarah Rule play, Eurydice, in the spring. And was it a response to that production? I mean, because this is a classic comedy thing. It's like, oh, this serious thing just happened, and now we're going to show you the reverse side of that. Or wasn't that intentional?
No, Karen Getz was the genius behind that show, and she had done something the year before or 2 years before in the Fringe called Suburban Love Songs. And both of these, everything is told through dance. It's a story that's told through dance. And the Suburban Love Songs was based in the 60s and was kind of about a party that ends up in partner swapping, and it used a lot of ballroom dancing and partner dancing from the 60s style. And so Disco Descending was the next in her, she was going to do a trilogy. And so
I see.
Disco Descending was, so we learned to hustle.
Right.
We learned all these 70s dances. One of the characters was on roller skates, but it was just a happy chance that it followed Eurydice.
I see. But was this your last big project together? Is the last time I actually find your names linked together, or am I missing something?
I don't know, but it was so much fun. That was such a
Was really fun.
fun project. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
But by December that same year, Jen, you're going back to vaudeville again, and you're creating Cherry Bomb
Yeah.
with Mary Martello and Maureen
Yeah.
Toisney Weird and Charlotte Ford and all the others about these set of sisters who were famous for being so bad they're funny. Again, an amazing sensation of a show out of completely historically. You're very interested in the history of comedy. You often go back and do research
Yeah.
and use historical archetypes for why something is funny. How has that proved to be a fruitful way of investigating comedy for you?
I think because I feel like we can learn an awful lot about who we are as people by what we laugh at over time. There are certain things that we were allowed to laugh at for a while that are now no, as we were talking about the David Sedaris piece, it's
Right.
like, wow, that was really funny when we did it, and now you couldn't do that anymore. And I remember reading about, and the vaudeville era,
Right.
you couldn't say hell, damn,
Right.
cockamamie, cockatoo,
But you could do a
cocker,
blackface
anything.
routine, an
Exactly.
anti-Semitic routine.
That's
Absolutely.
right. And
No
now
problem.
we've sort of flipped. And it's
Yeah.
also interesting to watch. I'm also interested in like what's funny over time. What was funny and now is no longer funny because
Right.
of the way society has changed. What is always funny, no matter what? And how have all of these forms sort of evolved? Like I remember reading about a vaudeville schoolroom sketch, which was a really traditional thing in vaudeville, and it was always either a Jewish, German, or Dutch teacher. There was always a dunce, a beautiful girl character, an Italian character, an Irish character, and a blackface character. Well, you've really changed Irish out for Hispanic, and that's Welcome Back, Kotter.
Right.
It's like how things have progressed over the years. I don't know. I'm really interested in what the rules of comedy are and how we break them. And yeah, so I'm a real nerd, and that is potentially unfortunate, but so far it served me well.
Not
Yeah.
only have you were investigating the history of comedic forms, but you're also investigating the history of your own life. A lot of your work, both of you, is a bit autobiographical. Jen, you end up doing one-woman shows, often that you've written and created for yourself. Like the show I've referenced often already, I Will Not Go Gently, which you just finished doing, Plays and Players, and Why I'm Scared of Dance, which is one of the best titles for a show I've ever heard. And what, were you scared of dance? Are you scared of dance? You've
Yes.
mentioned movement a lot. You've done
Yes.
commedia dell'arte a lot.
I know. So I had just had my daughter was 6 at the time, and as a mom, I was, you look at your kid and you can't help but remember what you were like at that time and wanting to make things different for them. The story, and I tell it in there, is when I was 6, I took a ballet class, and you had to leap, and I just remember the instructor going, okay, let's try it again. Jenny, get off the ground. Come on, let's leap, and I couldn't do it. And being incredibly embarrassed and ashamed. And then from that point on, just kind of like shutting down and going, well, I guess I can't dance. And even at University of the Arts, where dance was a huge part of the
Sure,
curriculum.
Nancy Cantra and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and walking into the classroom in those big, huge mirrors where you could see all of your flaws. And so it was really less about dance and more about an examination of what is shame and how we learn shame. So it was going back and looking at all of these embarrassing dance moments in my life, and finally landing with my daughter, who was like, I don't want to do steps, I just want to dance. And I remember her saying to me, like, come on, Mom, you are such a good dancer. And finally finding this freedom. And again, it's less about being a dancer and more about shedding shame and all of these things that are put on you and having the freedom to kind of be who you are.
And Pete, your work is also autobiographical. You did the play and the film, Beautiful Boy. And again, this is about your son. And and then that's where your career starts taking. And now you help create a school, right?
Well, I created a program. I didn't create a school. I
Right.
created a program for the Pathway School. I've been there. The program has been there almost 20 years, which subsequently I just left.
Well, eventually we move on from everything we do.
Yeah,
We're at that point in our lives when
Right,
we have
right.
to make choices and cut some
There we
ties.
go.
Yeah.
That's right. But it's been a fantastic ride. Somebody else will go in there and continue on with the work. But it was a great experience to create work for kids with all different special needs, including autism, but anywhere on the spectrum, and using theater as a vehicle to create connection. And that's been it's been a major part of my life's journey. So.
Right. Well, Jen, I'm sorry to have to skip over so much about the history of 1812, post the point where Pete has left it, and you've been the sole leader of it for so long, and I know there's so many people you'd like to talk about who are your staff, Dave Jadico and others, but at least want to talk about what's become the annual sort of a show of 1812 Productions, a topical news review, a satirical show called This Is the Week That Is, where you annually get a group together, about 6 to 8 people, and you do topical sketches and scenes and improvisations and songs, and it's always a big money raiser. Why has that been something that the company's had to return to again and again?
Part of it is demand, I think. It's when it started. So we did the big time vaudeville. We did like Crazy Like Wow, which was nightclub comedy. It started this series of holiday shows that looked at an era or area of comedic history, and This Is the Week started as a history of political humor, and it just caught fire. So we did it the next year, and it was like, great, this will be the second time we do it. We'll never do it again. But it continued, and the next year was an election year. It was when Barack Obama was running against John McCain. So we did it as an election special leading up to the election. Again, huge. And there are so many people I know or I meet who go, yeah, 1812, I've never heard of 1812. Well, we do This Is the Week. Oh, I love This Is the Week That Is. I go to see it every year.
But they don't associate it with
They
the name
don't
of the company.
associate it necessarily
Huh.
with the company. I mean, many do, but I guess that's all to say it has its own kind of following that is probably double what the rest of our shows are.
Wow.
It also gives us the opportunity, I think, to respond and grapple with. I've always felt like comedy for me is the opportunity to transform fear into joy and ugly things into something that is into things that are beautiful. And especially at times when we are so freaking divided, the ability to come together as a community and laugh with everything that's going on in the world is helpful. And it's changed over the years.
Right. Well, so this is a perfect segue to my final talking point here. Here's a moment we should all look back at what you've done together. And as I said to Mary Martello in the last interview on this podcast, increasingly we're all aware as theater people that we're traveling together into a new era of history. We're still clinging to the values and the well-honed tools that we developed for the last era, but we spent a lifetime creating these tools and these points of views and these values and aesthetics, and we're like Coyote, in the Roadrunner sketch. We're out there in the air as if the gap hasn't opened up beneath us. And there was a lot of that, Jen, in your recent one-woman show, She Gets Around, which again was a very retrospective and autobiographical show. And you're literally acting on stage with all of your old outfits. You put your closet on stage. So you're literally trying on your old clothes and trying to see how that fits in the person you are now. Do I sum that experience up well, or did you want to add more to that?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. And at the end of that show, I come to the same place that I come to this response now is like, I don't know. I really don't know who I'm supposed to be next or how. I mean, we're constantly having to reinvent and sometimes it's maddening because I go, come on, I've been doing this for so many years. I'm supposed to coast now. I just want to coast, but I don't know that I have any answers. I keep throwing spaghetti at the wall and I keep trying to figure it out. But I don't know, theater has survived for this long.
Well, oddly, it's sort of like the only tool we have left. It's not digitizable. The experience cannot be mediated. It has to be mediated, and everything which is now being invaded by data collection and by artificial intelligence can all be taken away, and this one-on-one experience that we have with each other cannot be. So in a way, it's the strongest tool we have, I feel. Pete, do you find that in what you're embarking on now with your own life and career?
Absolutely. And my son, Colin, I was informed, wrote a piece about a data center that's supposed to be put up in
King of Prussia, right?
King of Prussia.
Near his home, yeah.
He wrote a piece that was transcribed out loud through a voice program about how he doesn't want it there and how he's hypersensitive to low frequency sounds and things like that. And it was a huge hit. But yeah, there was a period where I was like, is this going to be the end, the death knell, especially during COVID and trying to get students online and trying to connect to people. But I see it. I see the need for community and I see the need for connection, and I know it's there and people reaching out. It's really important.
Well, Jennifer Childs, Pete Pryor, this has been a wonderful conversation. I don't want to end it here, but I'm going to end it here because we all have things to go on to do with our lives. But thank you so much for being with us on the podcast today.
Gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you guys. Thanks again to Jen and to Pete. It was so great to reconnect with them and to bring their stories to all of you. In the upcoming episodes, I'm going to be talking with more of the experimental side of the Philadelphia theater scene. Starting with the director Mark Lorber, we'll be talking to other directors, designers, and producers that were really pushing boundaries and expanding the art form over the last few decades. And as September approaches, and since it's almost fringe art season here in Philly, once again, we'll be talking with folks who helped to create the local fringe scene back in the 90s, and those who have taken theater far beyond the confines of the familiar, the safe, and the expected. Look for those interviews coming up over the next couple of months. To support the work I'm doing here on the podcast and to get access to our monthly bonus episodes and our special members-only content, go to www.patreon.com/AITH podcast. You can contact me at aithpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks to all of you for listening to the show today and for coming along on another adventure in theater history, Philadelphia.